Welcome to month 3 of the BMAD method track. This is the final month of the track, and it is the most demanding. You spent month 1 learning BMAD fundamentals, the 4 phases, the 5 agents, quick flow, and end-to-end delivery. Month 2 taught you how to build custom agents and workflows with BMAD Builder. Now in month 3, you step into the role of a test architect. This month is about a mindset shift. You are not here to learn how to write tests. You already know how to write tests. You are here to learn how to think about testing at a systems level, how to classify risk, how to decide what gets tested, and how deeply, how to build a test framework that scales, and how to make evidence-based release decisions. The title of this month is Risk-Based Testing and Quality Gates, because those two concepts are the backbone of everything you will do over the next 4 weeks. By the end of this month, you will deliver a complete test architecture, a risk-classified test design, a scaffolded test framework wired into CI/CD, automated test coverage across all priority tiers, a traceability matrix that maps every PPRD feature to its tests, and a go-no-go release gate decision backed by hard data. This is 60 to 80 hours of work. It is intense, and it is meant to be. Here is how the month breaks down. 4 weeks, 15 to 20 hours per week, totaling 60 to 80 hours. The format is self-paced learning backed by weekly mentor sessions. But the nature of the work this month is different from what came before. In month 1, you produced documents and code. In month 2, you built agents. This month, you are producing test architecture artifacts, automation code, quality audits, and release decisions. The milestone for this month is a complete test architecture. That phrase is specific. It means 4 things delivered together: a risk-based test design document, a production test framework with CI/CD integration, automated test coverage with a quality audit, and a traceability matrix with a release gate decision. Each of these builds on the one before it. You cannot build a meaningful traceability matrix without first having automated tests. You cannot write meaningful automated tests without a framework. You cannot design a framework without knowing which features need the most coverage. That is why risk classification comes first. The weekly mentor sessions become especially valuable this month. Test architecture involves judgment calls. How aggressive should the coverage targets be? When is a conditional go acceptable versus as a hard no-go? What is the right balance between E2E and unit tests? These are the kinds of questions where mentor feedback makes the difference. By the end of this month, you will be able to do 5 things, and every one of them maps to something a test architect does on a real project. First, install the TA module and activate Murat. TA stands for Test Engineering Architecture. It is a BMAD extension module that adds test-specific agents, commands, and workflows. Murat is the agent you will interact with throughout this month. Second, apply P2 through P3 risk-based prioritization. This is the foundation of everything else. P2 means critical. If this breaks, the business loses money or users cannot function. P3 means low, cosmetic, nice to have, minimal business impact. You will use a probability impact matrix to classify every PRD feature. This classification drives every downstream decision. What gets automated, how deeply it is tested, whether it blocks a release. Third, scaffold a production test framework. Not a toy project. A framework with composable fixtures, data factories, authentication session management, and a project structure that scales. Fourth, write ATDD tests and conduct quality audits. Acceptance test-driven development means writing failing tests before implementation. The quality audit produces a 0 to 100 score across multiple dimensions. Both require discipline. Fifth, build a traceability matrix and make gate decisions. This is the capstone skill. You map every PRD feature to its test files, its coverage percentage, and its pass-fail status. Then you look at that matrix and make a defensible go-no-go call. This is the new agent you will work with this month. Murat is the master test architect. His persona is deliberately different from the agents you have met before. Mary is collaborative and creative. John is methodical. Winston is adversarial. Murat is analytical with strong opinions. His motto is strong opinions, weakly held. In practice, this means Murat will push you toward a specific testing strategy based on the data. He will tell you that your PD features need comprehensive E2E coverage and that your P3 features are wasting CI minutes. But if you push back with evidence, if you show him that a P3 feature actually has high user impact in a specific context, he will revise his recommendation. He responds to data, not authority. There are 4 engagement models for TA. No TA means manual testing without any agent involvement. Solo means TA works independently. You hand it a codebase, and it produces a test strategy without much interaction. Light means you call on TA occasionally for guidance, like running a quality audit or getting a risk classification. Integrated means TEA is embedded in your development workflow. Every feature gets a test design. Every PR gets a quality check. Every release gets a gate decision. For this course, you will use the integrated model. That gives you the most exposure to Murat's capabilities and the most practice making test architecture decisions. As with all BMAD agents, every interaction with Murat should happen in a fresh chat session. Do not carry over long conversations. Context degradation applies to Murat just as much as any other agent. This is the most important concept in the entire month. Every decision you make for the rest of the course flows from this classification. PD is critical. These are features where failure means the business cannot operate or users are harmed. Authentication, payment processing, data integrity, anything where a bug means lost revenue, security breaches, or corrupted data. PD features get comprehensive coverage. Unit tests, integration tests, API tests, E2E tests, and possibly visual regression tests. There is no excuse for shipping a PD feature with gaps. P1 is high. These are core functionality features, CRUD operations, search, navigation, the features that users interact with every day. They are not business critical in the way PD is, but poor quality here degrades the user experience significantly. P1 features get strong coverage, unit tests, API tests, and targeted E2E tests for the primary user paths. P2 is medium, user preferences, notification settings, configuration screens. Important for a polished product, but failure here is an annoyance, not a crisis. P2 features get moderate coverage, unit tests and selective API tests. P3 is low, tooltips, cosmetic UI details, admin-only reports used by a handful of people. P3 features get minimal automated coverage or are tested manually. Your CI pipeline should not be spending 10 minutes running E2E tests on tooltip rendering. The classification formula is risk equals probability times impact. You use a probability impact matrix to map each feature. A payment feature processing 10,000 transactions per day has a different risk profile than one processing 10 transactions per month, even though both involve money. This is where test architecture requires judgment, not just checklists. Week 1 is about laying the foundation. You will install TA, activate Murat, and produce your first major deliverable, a risk-based test design document. Start with TA installation, roughly 2 hours. Install the TA module into your existing BMAD project. TA adds new commands, new workflow files, and Murat's agent configuration. Explore the file structure after installation. Understand what TA added and where it fits in the BMAD project layout. Spend about an hour evaluating the 4 engagement models. You will use integrated for this course, but understanding when solo or light would be appropriate matters. In a real project, the engagement model depends on team size, project complexity, and testing maturity. Murat activation takes about 2 hours. Activate Murat in a fresh chat and explore his capabilities. Run his commands. Understand how he differs from the agents you have used before. Murat loads 35 knowledge fragments on demand, specialized testing patterns, heuristics, and decision frameworks that inform his recommendations. Then spend 3 hours on risk-based methodology. Take your existing PRD from earlier months and classify every feature into P2 through P3 using the probability impact matrix. Document your rationale for each classification. The probability impact matrix exercise itself takes about 2 hours. This is a structured analysis where you rate each feature on 2 axes. How likely is it to have a defect? And how severe would that defect be? Features that score high on both axes are P2. Features that score low on both are P3. Finally, run the BMAD test design command and spend about 4 hours producing a comprehensive test design document. This is your first deliverable for the challenge. Murat will guide you through the process, but the judgment calls are yours. The TA framework defines 5 levels of testing, forming a progression from cheap and fast to expensive and comprehensive. Unit tests are the foundation. They test isolated functions and components with no external dependencies. They run in milliseconds and provide the fastest feedback loop of any test type. When a unit test fails, you know exactly which function broke and why. Every P2 through P2 feature should have unit tests. Integration tests verify that modules work together correctly. They test data flow across service boundaries. Does your authentication module correctly pass tokens to your API layer? Does your database access layer correctly serialize and deserialize your domain objects? Integration tests are slower than unit tests, but they catch a class of bugs that unit tests simply cannot detect. API tests validate endpoint contracts. They send HTTP requests and verify response codes, headers, and body structure. They cover request validation, error handling, and edge cases. For backend-heavy applications, API tests often provide more value per minute of CI time than E2E tests. Contract testing with tools like Pact fits this level. E2E tests simulate full user journeys in a real browser. They are the most realistic test type. They exercise the entire stack from UI to database. They are also the slowest, the most expensive to maintain, and the most prone to flakiness. Use them strategically for PD and P1 user paths, not for every feature. Visual tests compare screenshots against baselines to detect unintended layout changes. They catch CSS regressions, responsive design breaks, and visual inconsistencies that functional tests miss entirely. The key principle is that depth scales with risk. P2 features get tested at all 5 levels. P3 features might only get a manual check. This is not optional guidance. It is the operational principle that drives your entire test design. Week 2 is the most technically intensive week. You are building 3 things: a test framework, a CI/CD pipeline, and your first ATDD tests. Start with framework scaffolding using the BMAD framework command, about 4 hours. Murat generates a complete test project structure, configuration files, helper utilities, base page objects, and a directory layout that scales. Review every generated file. Understand the design decisions Murat made, and question the ones that do not fit your project. Fixture architecture takes about 3 hours. This is where most test frameworks succeed or fail at scale. Good fixtures are composable. You can combine a logged-in user fixture with a populated database fixture without them conflicting. You will build data factories that generate realistic test data, authentication session fixtures that handle login without hitting the UI every time, and database seeders that set up preconditions efficiently. CI/CD pipeline configuration using BMAD takes about 3 hours. You are wiring your test framework into GitHub Actions or an equivalent CI platform. Murat generates pipeline configuration with staged gates, shard orchestration for parallel E2E execution, and burn-in support for detecting flaky tests. Staged CI jobs take about 2 hours to configure properly. The pipeline runs in 5 stages: lint, unit tests, API tests, sharded E2E tests, and the quality gate. The philosophy is fail fast with cheap checks first. ATDD using BMAD takes about 3 hours. You will pick your highest priority P2 features and write acceptance tests that define expected behavior before any implementation changes. The tests must fail initially. That failing state is the proof that the test is actually testing something meaningful. The CI/CD pipeline runs in 5 stages, ordered by cost. This is the fail-fast philosophy in action. Stage 1 is lint and type check. ESLint rules, TypeScript compiler checks, formatting validation. These run in seconds. If your code has syntax errors or type violations, there is no point running tests. Catch it here and fix it immediately. Stage 2 is unit tests. These are your fastest automated tests. Isolated functions, no external dependencies, no network calls, no browser launches. High coverage, fast feedback. If unit tests fail, you have a logic error in your code. Fix it before spending CI minutes on more expensive stages. Stage 3 is API tests. Endpoint contracts, request response validation, error handling, integration with databases or external services. These take longer than unit tests because they involve network I/O and possibly database setup. But they are still much cheaper than E2E tests. Stage 4 is E2E tests, sharded for parallel execution. This is where browser automation runs. Full user journeys executing against a real application. Sharding splits the test suite across multiple CI runners so that a 30-minute E2E suite runs in 10 minutes across 3 shards. This is critical for keeping CI feedback times reasonable. Stage 5 is the quality gate. This stage does not run tests, it evaluates results. It checks coverage thresholds, analyzes pass rates, looks for flaky test patterns, and produces a pass-fail decision. If the quality gate fails, the pipeline fails and the PR cannot merge. The pipeline is ordered by cost for a reason. Lint costs nothing. Unit tests cost almost nothing. API tests cost a little. E2E tests cost a lot. In time, in CI minutes, and in maintenance. You only spend that cost after the cheaper stages have confirmed there are no basic problems. ATDD is the testing methodology you will practice throughout the rest of this month. It differs from standard TDD in one critical way. You write acceptance-level tests, not just unit tests. These tests describe the behavior the user expects, written in terms of the acceptance criteria from your user stories. Phase 1 is the red phase. You write a failing acceptance test. The test describes what should happen. When a user submits valid login credentials, they should be redirected to the dashboard. You run the test. It fails. That failure is intentional and required. If the test passes before you write any implementation code, either the feature already exists or your test is not testing what you think it is. Phase 2 is the green phase. You write the minimum code necessary to make the test pass, not the best code, not the most elegant code. The minimum code that turns the red test green. This constraint keeps you focused on behavior, not premature optimization. Phase 3 is refactor. Now that your tests are green, you clean up the code. extract methods, rename variables, reduce duplication, improve structure. The tests act as a safety net. If your refactoring breaks something, a test catches it immediately. Phase 4 is verify. Run the full regression suite, not just the test you wrote. Confirm that your new code did not break any existing functionality. Confirm that the acceptance criteria are fully met. The BMAD ATDD command generates red phase acceptance tests from your user stories. Murat analyzes the acceptance criteria and produces test stubs that describe the expected behavior. Your job is to verify these tests are correct, run them to confirm they fail, then implement the code to make them pass. Writing tests after the code is already done is retrofitting, and it produces weaker tests. When you write tests first, you are forced to think about behavior before implementation, which produces clearer requirements, better interfaces, and more testable code. Week 3 is about expanding coverage, auditing quality, and assessing non-functional requirements. You have your framework from Week 2. Now you use it at scale. Test automation expansion using BMAD Automate takes about 4 hours. You will systematically add automated tests for all PD and P1 features, and selective tests for P2 features. This is not about writing as many tests as possible. It is about writing the right tests at the right level for each risk tier. Murat guides your test strategy for each feature based on its priority classification. API testing patterns take about 3 hours. This covers contract testing with PACT, request response validation for every endpoint, error scenario testing, what happens when the request body is malformed, when authentication is missing, when the database is unavailable, and integration testing across service boundaries. API tests are the workhorse of a modern test suite. They are faster than E2E tests, more stable, and they catch the majority of backend bugs. Quality audit using BMAD test review takes about 3 hours. Murat analyzes your entire test suite and produces a 0 to 100 quality score across multiple dimensions: test design quality, coverage completeness, maintainability, CI integration, and naming conventions. The score is not a simple pass-fail. It is a diagnostic tool. A score of 65 tells you exactly where the gaps are and what to fix first. Flakiness management takes about 2 hours. Flaky tests, tests that pass sometimes and fail sometimes without any code changes, are technical debt, not noise. The approach is clear. Quarantine flaky tests immediately so they stop blocking the pipeline, then fix them systematically. You will identify flaky tests in your suite, quarantine them, investigate root causes like timing issues, shared state, or external dependencies, and create a remediation plan. NFR assessment using BMAD Infrasys takes about 3 hours. Non-functional requirements include performance, security, accessibility, and reliability. Murat evaluates your application against NFR criteria and identifies gaps. Are response times within acceptable thresholds? Are there obvious security vulnerabilities? Does the UI meet basic accessibility standards? This assessment feeds directly into the release gate decision in Week 4. This is the scoring system that BMAD test review produces. Understanding what each tier means is essential for making release gate decisions. 80 to 100 is excellent. This means production ready. Comprehensive coverage across all priority tiers. Minimal risk of shipping a critical defect. Your PD features have 90% or higher coverage. Your P1 features have 75% or higher. Tests are well-structured, well-named, and maintainable. The CI pipeline is green and stable. A quality audit score in this range is strong evidence for a GO decision at the release gate. 60 to 79 is good. Solid coverage with acceptable gaps. You might have P2 features with incomplete tests or a few P1 features where coverage is below target. This range is acceptable for release in many contexts, but you need to document the gaps and have a remediation plan. A conditional GO is often appropriate at this level. 40 to 59 needs work. Significant gaps exist. P2 or P1 features may have incomplete coverage. The test suite may have structural issues, brittle selectors, shared state between tests, inadequate error handling. This range requires remediation before release. A no-go decision is likely appropriate unless there are strong business reasons to accept the risk. 0 to 39 is critical. Major risks, incomplete test strategy, high probability of shipping defects into production. This is a hard MOGO. The test architecture needs fundamental rework before the product is release ready. The quality score is not a vanity metric. It feeds directly into the release gate decision. When you present your go-no-go recommendation in week 4, the quality score is one of the key pieces of evidence you will cite. Week 4 is the culmination of everything you have built. You will produce the traceability matrix, analyze coverage gaps, make a release gate decision, and complete the capstone project. The traceability matrix using BMAD trace takes about 4 hours. This is the artifact that connects your PRD to your tests. Every feature in your PRD gets a row in the matrix. Each row shows the priority classification, the test types covering that feature, the specific test files, the pass-fail status, and the coverage percentage. When someone asks, "Is feature X tested?" the traceability matrix provides the answer instantly. Coverage gap analysis takes about 2 hours. With the traceability matrix built, you can immediately see where the gaps are. Are there PD features with less than 90% coverage? Are there P1 features with no E2E tests? Are there P2 features with zero automated coverage? The gap analysis prioritizes remediation. P2 gaps first, then P1, then P2. P3 gaps are documented, but not blockers. The release gate go-no-go decision takes about 3 hours. This is the capstone skill of the entire month. You gather all the evidence, quality score, coverage percentages by priority tier, NFR assessment results, open blockers, flaky test status, and make a defensible decision. GO means all PD and P1 features are covered. The quality score is 80 or above, and there are no open blockers. Conditional GO means minor gaps exist, with a mitigation plan, and the score is 60 to 79. NO-GO means critical gaps exist, P2 features are untested, or the score is below 60. TA Academy, using BMAD, Teach Me testing takes about 2 hours. This interactive learning module has 7 sessions that deepen your testing knowledge in areas identified as weak spots. The capstone project takes about 4 hours. This is your complete end-to-end test architecture deliverable, packaged and organized for evaluation, encompassing everything from weeks 1 through 4. The traceability matrix is a concrete artifact that you will produce. Here is how it works, row by row. User auth is PD priority. It has unit and E2E test types. The test files are auth specs and login.e2ets. Status is passing. Coverage is 95%. This is what a well-tested P2 feature looks like: comprehensive coverage at multiple test levels, high coverage percentage, all tests green. Payment flow is also P2. It has unit API and E2E tests, 3 levels of coverage. The files are payment.spec.ts a.py. Status is passing at 92%. P2 features should have tests at the most levels and the highest coverage targets. Search is P1, unit and API tests, 85% coverage. No E2E tests for search. This is a judgment call. If search is primarily a backend feature with a simple UI, API tests may provide sufficient confidence. If search has complex UI interactions like autocomplete, filtering, and pagination, E2E coverage would be warranted. Notifications is P2. Only unit tests at 60% coverage with a partial status. This is acceptable for a P2 feature. It is covered but not comprehensively. If time allows, you would improve it, but it does not block a release. Tooltips is P3. Manual testing only, no automated coverage. This is by design. Spending automation effort on tooltips would be a poor investment when P1 features still have gaps. The BMAD trace command auto-generates this matrix from your PRD and test files, highlighting coverage gaps for each priority tier. Your job is to review it, validate it, and identify where remediation is needed. This is the slide that ties everything together. The release gate decision is the final output of a test architect's work. There are 3 decision types. GEO means all evidence supports release. All P2 and P1 features are covered. The quality score is 80 or above. There are no open blockers. NFR assessment is satisfactory. This decision must be earned with evidence, not assumptions. Conditional GEO means you are close, but not fully there. Minor gaps exist. Maybe a P1 feature is at 70% coverage instead of 75, or the quality score is 72. A conditional GEO requires a mitigation plan. What are the gaps? What is the risk of shipping with those gaps? And when will they be remediated? This is a legitimate decision when the business value of shipping outweighs the residual risk. No-go means the evidence does not support release. Critical gaps exist. P2 features are untested or failing. The quality score is below 60. Open blockers have not been resolved. A no-go is not a failure. It is the test architecture working as designed. It is better to catch these problems at the gate than in production. 5 pieces of evidence are required for the decision. Quality score from the 0 to 100 audit. P2 coverage targeting 90% or higher. P1 coverage targeting 75% or higher. NFR status covering performance, security, and accessibility. Open blockers, which must be 0 for a GEO decision. This is why evidence-based decisions matter. You are not saying, I feel like it is not ready. You are saying P2 authentication coverage is at 61%. The quality score is 54, and there are 2 open blockers. The data says no-GEO. That is a defensible, transparent decision that any stakeholder can understand. Your Month 3 challenge is worth 100 points across 4 deliverables, each worth 25 points. This is the most comprehensive challenge in the BMAD track because it requires all 4 weeks of work to come together as a cohesive whole. Deliverable 1 is risk-based test design, worth 25 points. This covers your P2 through P3 classification, with the probability impact matrix, your test design document produced with Murat's guidance, your quality gate criteria, and evidence of meaningful Murat interaction. Clear rationale must support every classification decision. Deliverable 2 is framework, CACD, and ATDD, worth 25 points. This covers your scaffolded test framework with fixture architecture, your CI/CD pipeline configuration with staged gates, and your red phase ATDD tests for P2 features. Fixtures must be composable, pipeline stages must be properly ordered, and ATDD tests must have been genuinely written before implementation. Deliverable 3 is automation and quality audit, worth 25 points. This covers your automated test coverage for PD and P1 features, API tests including contract testing, the 0 to 100 quality score with remediation actions, your NMFR assessment results, and your flakiness management plan. Your tests must pass when the evaluator runs them. Deliverable 4 is traceability, release gate, and capstone, worth 25 points. This covers your traceability matrix mapping PRD features to tests, your coverage gap analysis, your go-no-go decision with supporting data, and your capstone presentation. The traceability matrix must be complete, the gap analysis must be honest, and the release gate decision must be consistent with the evidence. There is also a cognitive exercise, test strategy triage, for an e-commerce platform with 200 or more features, 0 existing tests, and a 6-week deadline. This tests your ability to make hard prioritization decisions under constraints. You cannot test everything in that time frame, so the question becomes, what do you test first, and why? The grading scale runs from A-Fs with specific criteria at each level. An A, 90 to 100, means exceptional work. Your test architecture is production-ready. Coverage is comprehensive across all priority tiers. The traceability matrix is complete. The release gate decision is backed by solid evidence. Your quality audit score is high and remediation of any issues is thorough. AB, 75 to 89, means strong work. Your test framework is solid, coverage is good, but there are minor gaps. Perhaps P2 coverage is thin, the CI pipeline is missing shard orchestration, or your quality audit identified issues that you documented but did not fully remediate. A C60 to 74 meets requirements. All 4 deliverables are present and submitted. Tests exist and pass. But there are quality issues, incomplete fixture architecture, missing API tests, a traceability matrix with gaps, or a release gate decision not fully supported by evidence. A D50 to 59 needs improvement. 1 or more deliverables have significant gaps. Perhaps the CI/CD pipeline was never configured, the quality audit was not completed, or the traceability matrix is missing for an entire priority tier. An F, below 50, does not meet requirements. The test architecture is incomplete with major deliverables missing. The pass threshold is 60% overall, but hard requirements also apply. All 4 deliverables must be submitted with test artifacts. The traceability matrix must be present. The release gate decision must be completed. Without these, you cannot pass regardless of your score on other deliverables. On the reading side, start with the TE documentation, the official documentation for the BMAD TA module covering all commands, workflows, and configuration options. The BMAD GitHub repository has source code and TA examples for reference. Playwright documentation is the primary reference for E2E test automation. The ATDD wiki provides background on acceptance test-driven development methodology. The ISTQB syllabus covers international software testing standards and terminology that provide useful context for test architecture concepts. PAC documentation covers consumer-driven contract testing for API testing patterns. For tools, you need BMAD with the TE module installed via npx BMAD method install. Node JGS 20 or later is the required runtime. Playwright or Cypress provides E2E test automation. TE supports both, with Playwright as the default recommendation. A CI/CD platform is required, with GitHub Actions as the default. An AI-powered IDE such as Claude Code, Cursor, or Windsurf rounds out the toolset. Make sure all tools are set up before week 1 begins. TA installation builds on your existing BMAD installation from month 1, so confirm that your previous environments are still functional before adding the TA module. That is the overview for month 3. This is the final month of the BMAD method track, and it is designed to be the most challenging. You are not just learning a tool or a framework, you are learning to think like a test architect. Week 1 gets you set up with TA and Murat and produces your risk-based test design. Week 2 builds your test framework, wires up CI/CD, and introduces ATDD. Week 3 expands your automation, audits quality, and assesses non-functional requirements. Week 4 builds the traceability matrix and makes the release gate decision. The skills you build this month: risk classification, test strategy design, quality auditing, evidence-based release decisions, are skills that organizations desperately need. Most teams write tests without a strategy. Most teams ship without a gate. Most teams cannot answer the question, how confident are we that this release is safe? After this month, you will be able to answer that question with data. Remember the core principles. Risk drives everything, so classify first, and then design tests. Fail fast in CI by running cheap checks before expensive ones. Tests are an investment, not a tax, so write the right tests at the right level. Evidence over opinion, because every release decision must be backed by data. This is month 3 of 3. After this month, you will have completed the full BMAD method track. Fundamentals, Builder, and Test Architect. That is a significant achievement. Make the most of these 4 weeks.